Today's video is about hope and faith. I want to share the story of why my channel is named Even Sewed as well, and to share the story of a family that, despite tremendous loss and tragedy, was able to move forward and do wonderful things. On November 15th, 1873, Anna Spafford and her 4 young daughters, Annie, Maggie, Bessie, and Tanetta, left Chicago and traveled to New York. From New York, they set sail bound for France on the ocean liner Ville de Havre. They were to be with Horatio, Anna's husband, and the children's father, but he was detained on business and would join them later. No doubt the trip was full of excitement and anticipation as they looked forward to joyful Christmas holidays with the family in Paris, the City of Lights. The family was in desperate need of some joy as they had endured personal and financial loss. 2 years prior, the Great Chicago Fire had all but destroyed Horatio's business investments. The trip to Paris was to be a time to restore hope and healing to the young family. On November 22nd, in the middle of the night, Anna and her girls were jolted out of their beds when their ship collided with another ship. Anna tried to get to the lifeboats, but they quickly filled. She was swept into the dark, icy waters with her daughters as the ship went down. Anna was later found floating, clinging to a piece of wood from the wreckage, and she was rescued. When she got to England, she telegraphed her husband, "Saved alone, what shall I do?" All 4 of their daughters had drowned. Horatio immediately set sail from New York to be with his wife. On the voyage over, he was summoned by the captain of the ship to the foredeck. They were nearing the place where Anna's ship had gone down, taking with it their 4 daughters. Horatio was a man of great faith, and while he was on that deck wrestling with his grief, he leaned into his faith, and a thought began that would help sustain him and would later become one of the greatest hymns of peace and healing. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Anna had a similar faith journey, and she felt she must carry on, and that despite her loss and grief, her life was to have meaning. The Spaffords returned to Chicago to start to rebuild their lives. They had other children, a boy and 2 girls. The boy, Horatio Jr., succumbed to scarlet fever at the tender age of 3. Again, the family was cast into grief. And again, they leaned into their faith. They felt that whatever tribulations they may suffer, that they would have the strength to carry on. And carry on they did. They led a life of service to others. They found strength to move on and strength to help others. For 150 years, this hymn has lifted people up, and they found strength in its words and message. The message that the human spirit can rise above tragedy, that the human spirit can endure loss and pain, that the human spirit can carry on, and we can lead fulfilling and joyful lives. Whenever we suffer, whenever we have our own crisis to endure, we can lean into the hope and knowledge that we will be okay. The human spirit can rise above tragedy. Being diagnosed and being told that I had a progressive, degenerative, and incurable illness was a time of crisis for me. It was a time where I was really shaken. Like many of you, I didn't know what the future would bring. Would I become disabled? Would I be able to work to support myself? Would my family be forced into the role of my caretakers? How would I endure this? There were a lot of doubts and a lot of fears. That first year was really tough. I wrestled with these intrusive thoughts, and I had more than a few sleepless nights. Over time, though, I started to become more at ease with my diagnosis. There were multiple choices for medications to help slow or stop the disease. I leaned in and started learning more about the diagnosis and the prognosis. I also started learning how I could make changes in my diet and my lifestyle to support my health, and how these changes could help with my symptoms and possibly even prevent progression. I also came to the realization that even if I did become disabled, that it wasn't the end of the world. I found dozens and dozens of examples of people with disabilities leading full, meaningful, and joyful lives. They've become my inspiration. It Is Well With My Soul has always been one of my favorite hymns, but it took on more meaning as I wrestled with my diagnosis that first year. The hymn comes up from time to time in our church services, and it always brings me some degree of peace and hope. I also sing in my church choir, and we sang it as an anthem one year shortly after my diagnosis. It was a beautiful arrangement by Llyod Larson that I will link above and put in the description below if you'd like to hear it. As we practiced it in rehearsals, the lyrics resonated with me. Even so, it is well. Could I adopt this? Could I embrace this thought? Could I tamp down my fears and uncertainties and move forward with life? I started to feel that I could. Even so, I have symptoms. I can still do almost everything I want to do. Even so, the prognosis is uncertain. There are things that I can do to help. I can take my medication, and I can make diet and lifestyle changes to support my body to be as healthy as it can be. Even so, I may become disabled, but I can still participate in and do so much with my life. I started to think, I got this. I can handle this. With a bit of faith, some science, and some self-care, I can handle this. We don't need to be religious or believe in a particular God. We can have faith in ourselves. It can come from within. In the spring of 2018, just about 1 year after my diagnosis, I had the words, "Even so, it is well," tattooed on my arm as a permanent reminder for myself. I see it every day. It's a visual reminder that even though everything may not be all right, I'll be okay. When people ask me what I do, I typically respond with, I help people. I have a virtual assistant business where I help my clients. I have a family that I help. I help in my community, in my town. I help at my church. It's part of who I am. I get a great deal of satisfaction and fulfillment by helping others. A year after I got my tattoo and 2 years after my diagnosis, I was doing well, and I decided I wanted to share my story to possibly help others as they dealt with their diagnosis and they grappled with the prognosis of multiple sclerosis. The medium I chose was YouTube and in videos. When I set up my channel, one of the first things I decided on was the name. I decided on Even So, It Is Well because it means a lot to me and it offers a bit of realism. Things may not always turn out the way we want or expect, but there's always hope and there can be peace. It can be well. No matter what the future brings, I know I can live well with my MS. It does not mean that everything is going to be all right, but that I'll be all right, no matter what's to come. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the like and the subscribe buttons. This is important because it will help the channel and it will help it to reach more people. To see more on living well with MS and chronic illness, watch the videos that are on your screen next. Until next time, be well.